are best judged according to principles. I mean,
Human moral actions.
no. Look, I'll switch places with you. That's fine.
Wow, we have had genuine difference of agreement on every single thing.
Right.
I think this is the only time I've ever had a radical difference of agreement with someone on
Aha.
everything.
The best definition of morality is a set of rules that binds individuals into a cooperative community. I'm going over here, right? Okay.
Reid? Okay, so you wrote down the best reason you have for believing that.
Well, I wrote down
Don't tell me what it is.
A pretty good reason.
Okay. No, it has to be your best reason.
I'm not sure that it is, but look, I haven't really thought.
Okay.
I haven't done a hierarchy of all the reasons I believe this.
That's fair.
Like it comes out of moral psychology, like it's based on the work of John.
Okay, don't. Let me guess the reason that you have written down there, and you guess my reason, but I'm going to guess yours first. Don't tell me a reason, just tell me if this is accurate. Your reason for the best definition of morality is a set of rules that binds individuals into a cooperative community. Your reason for believing that is primarily historical. You look at how morality has been, let's say, operationalized throughout the ages, and you come to an historical conclusion. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. Now, you try to guess mine.
Do you probably have a sense that morality, that people can have a personal morality that is independent of any sort of group or community?
Almost exact.
Okay.
But
Look.
close enough so that I can reveal my answer. Cooperative community is irrelevant to morality.
Okay.
Because you could have one individual who believes something against his tribe or her tribe, unless you want to say that you want to say morality is arbitrary and there are no moral facts, and that is why you resort to that definition. But you're correct. Let me see if I can guess yours again. Why would someone believe that? Boy, I don't really have any idea why anybody would believe that. If it's not for historical reasons. Because you can't even make sense of the notions of morality unless you have people in a linguistic community who support the values of others in that community, and that determines morality over time.
Say it again.
I don't know if I can.
You want a hint?
So if that's not correct, then just tell me what it is.
All moral rules dictate behavior for individuals that minimize harm to the community. Like, that's the purpose of moral rules.
All moral rules dictate behavior for individuals that minimize harm to the community.
Right. Now, it could look, and I know you're probably going to argue that there are things that people can do that some people describe as immoral that don't do any harm to the community. But I would argue that the reason people are saying that they are harmful is because they perceive that they will harm the community.
And by community, you mean the in-group?
I mean whoever opts in to this moral rule set. So you're setting up a system of rules. You know, various people opt in. There's rules for the atheist community. There's rules for the Christian community. There's rules for the Islamic community. Those people opt into those rule sets, and those rules dictate how they interact with their community. So there could be multiple communities who have different moral systems, but all moral systems are about setting up rules so individuals can interact with that community. Morality is basically a technology.
And that makes it... So to me, that doesn't have anything to do with morality. It just has to do with something, a kind of set of rules to make function society function in an orderly and maybe efficient manner. But that's not really morality to me.
Okay, so what is your definition of morality?
Mine is super broad, because I think when the question was first asked is what was the best definition of morality, I just like what one ought to do or how one ought to live.
Right.
It's independent of any rules.
So what do you base? So look, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That would be a rule. Obviously, there's morality is about rules to dictate behavior. So we agree on that.
I don't know if that's what it's about. I mean, why would it be about?
Well, you just said it was
what one ought
how
to do.
To behave. What one ought to
you
do
don't need
is
rules for that. Like because even the rules themselves, when you concretize those in language, you have to look at the context in which it takes place. So I don't know why you would need a rule for morality. I mean, I understand we have a Judeo-Christian. Go ahead.
What one ought to do.
Yeah.
Isn't that a rule? Like if you say one ought not to lie, isn't that a rule?
That would be
that's
a rule,
like a prohibition on lying.
Yeah, that's right.
So can you think of a rule of how you said how one ought to behave? Can you think of something? Can you think of something that is how someone ought to behave that can't be turned into a rule? If we're disagreeing on that.
Yeah. So kindness.
Mm-hmm.
One ought to be kind.
Right.
But then if one is an executioner or something in a system in which they execute people who've been found guilty in a fair trial by, I don't know, slow torture or something.
Okay.
And they do that by lottery. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. But
they
do that by lottery and they pick somebody. That would violate the rule, but yet it would still be what one ought to do.
Well, I would argue that there's inside that moral community, there are different rules for different people.
So you're saying
and also, I don't look the kindness rule. I don't necessarily applies in the situation of an executioner.
New claim: people can be kind without following any moral rules. People can be kind without following any moral rules.
People can be kind without following any moral rules. I'm gonna go to neutral.
Wouldn't you have to go to strongly disagree if you're to maintain your definition of morality?
Well, I mean, it depends upon how you're defining kindness. I mean,
the standard dictionary definition.
People can be kind. Okay, so I guess I will go to strongly disagree.
Yeah.
So people can.
You would have to go to strongly disagree to be consistent. Unless you don't value consistency, then you can go anywhere you want.
People can be kind without following any moral rules. People can be kind and break the moral rules. Like in the situation that you set up, if the moral rule is this, be kind is a moral rule.
So let's do that claim. Be kind is a moral. You can put that down. You don't have to hang on to that.
Okay, good. Be kind is a moral. Well, okay. Be kind is a moral rule. Strongly agree. Yes, but I mean, doesn't have to be.
I'm neutral because
it's not morally exclusive.
I'm not sure why we're having a conversation about rules.
So your definition of morality doesn't involve any rules. How do you? I
mean, I'm not sure why you would. I mean, here. I guess here's a claim.
Morality has nothing to do with human behavior.
No, hold on. Just one second. So, one can be a moral person and not follow any rules. Okay, let's do the thing again. So you strongly disagree that one can be a moral person and not follow any rules. And I think that you believe that because to be moral, by definition, you have to follow rules.
Yes.
Okay, so I got it. I guessed it correctly.
Look, I used your definition of morality.
Morality
is about right and wrong behavior. What one should do is a moral rule.
So maybe we have a conflict about what a rule. Maybe our disagreement is about what a rule is.
Okay.
But you want to guess why I am on the strongly agree for one can be
One
a
can
moral
be a moral
person?
person and not follow any rules. Well, you don't define what one should do or should not do as a rule.
Yeah, even deeper than that, though.
You think someone can break rules and still be a moral person?
Even deeper than that. I'll tell you. Rules and morality are independent of each other. Rules could help one think they're behaving morally, but do not a moral person make.
Right.
And then I wrote, this includes not having a rule that one will follow rules.
Right.
Oh, this is a new claim, Art. Are you ready for a new claim? All answers to the question, what should one do, can be expressed as a rule.
Oh, there we go.
All answers to the question, what should one do,
Yeah.
can be expressed as a rule.
I want to see this one. Okay, good.
Okay, so I'm on strongly disagree.
So we're disagreeing over the definition of a rule, I guess.
So all answers to the question, what should one do, can be expressed as a rule.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I have multiple problems with that, which is why I'm on strongly disagree. Are you familiar with the, I think it was, I could be wrong about this, it was one of the AIs, I think it was Bing, or no, I think it was a Bard, I think it was Bard, when they said you're alone on a desert island, and all you have to do is whisper the N-word, and no one's going to hear you, and nothing's going to happen. You'd save millions of lives, but if you don't, and then the AI kicked back something like, "It is always wrong to use racial things, no matter what."
Right.
Okay, that's clearly. You could say that whoever tried to put the guardrails on that AI fucked up royally with that, but it was a rule. So I guess my question to you is, if all answers to the question which one do can be expressed as a rule, then wouldn't you have a morality bloated by a proliferation of rules such that it would be impossible to actually act morally because there are just too many varieties and too many contexts which those rules could manifest?
Well, the complexity of the moral system doesn't negate the basic claim that I'm making, that morality is a set of rules to bind individuals into a cooperative community. That cooperative community can have all kinds of different rules. It could have one rule, but it doesn't change the central claim. You're making the claim that morality is about what one should do. Can we simplify that to behavior, prescriptive behavior?
Yes.
Okay. So
what one should do, yes.
So the disagreement I guess we're having is I'm defining what
you think
one
you need
should
rules
do
to be
as
moral.
A rule,
yeah. You
as
think
a rule for behavior, and you're saying that it's not necessarily a rule.
How about this one? Absent rules, one cannot act morally. Absent rules, one cannot act morally.
Strongly agree.
Strongly disagree.
Okay.
Okay, so
Absent rules. So look,
yeah, go ahead.
So someone who has no rules, you've set up a situation where someone has no rules. That person can lie,
Well, I don't know if
cheat,
they have no-
steal, kill, rape, do all of these things. All of those are rules, okay? If you're living your life absent of any rules, can you define that person as a moral person?
Okay, hold on. Hold on a second.
Look,
So let's say a 25-year-old guy lives his life to the best of his ability, follows the 10 Commandments, etc., and he finds himself in a weird situation where a little kid runs out into the street and there's cars coming. What rule could that guy invoke that he should save the kid? Or am I missing something? because rendered in your system, wouldn't that render any possibility of something without a rule? Then one couldn't be moral.
No, it's not.
Because you would
There
need to
are
keep trillions of
kinds
rules.
There are all kinds of behaviors that can operate outside of moral rules. There are all kinds of behaviors that do.
So if the guy ran and saved the kid at a chance that he could die himself, he wouldn't be acting morally. He'd just be discharging some kind of intuition, a non-moral intuition, like a socially fabricated.
Any social interaction that takes place, there's probably moral rules around. My whole point is that the rules of morality are socially interactive rules. They basically turn individuals into a cooperative community to compete for resources, to compete against other moral communities. This definition would include all kinds of different groups. Like the atheist community doesn't believe in God, but there's still a moral community. There's all kinds of laws, all kinds of prohibitions around certain behaviors in the atheist community. You've seen it for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So
I'm just. I guess our difference is, and correct me if I'm wrong, on what a rule is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? We're disagreeing about what a rule is.
I guess. Look, if you can think of some sort of moral, anything related to morality that doesn't have to do with rules, I guess.
Yeah, I just gave you one. The young kid running into the street at a cost to his potential that he could die to save an infant who who crawled in the middle of the street.
Sure. So you're basically saying because no specific rule has been created for this situation, even though I would argue that there's a general category of if you can save a life without much harm, without any harm to yourself.
Even if he didn't have access to that rule?
Well, a lot of the
What about this?
How about this?
How about this? How about this to solve our dispute?
Mm-hmm.
Could our disagreement be solved, and would you be willing to do this? And if you're not willing to do this, that's 100% fine.
Uh-huh.
Would you be willing to change the word from rule to principle? If you're willing to do that, I'd be willing to reconsider all of my opinions.
Murder being illegal is not a principle, though. I mean, it's a rule.
No, we know why murder.
Principle doesn't cover all of the rules of morality.
No. Hold on a second.
That'd be tough.
Let's not use the word murder because murder is a thick word. It has bad contained within it.
Sure, okay.
Let's use another word like stealing, cheating, lying.
Okay.
Because you could easily think of situations in which you could steal, cheat, and lie, but not situations in which you would murder. You would use the word killing.
Right. Okay.
Like, for example,
we'll go with lie.
Okay.
Lie is fine.
Lie's fine. So would you be willing to change?
Most societies have the rule around lying is don't lie to anyone in your in-group, and anyone in your out-group, lie like hell to.
Okay.
That's usually the moral community rule.
Okay. Would you be willing, and if you're not willing, this is totally fine, to abandon the idea of rules and switch to principles?
Convince me that principles more clearly articulates what I'm saying.
I don't think that rules do the work that you think that they do. I think that they, I don't even think that they're in the same category of morality.
Can you give me an example of 5 or just a couple of moral principles?
It's just something that we seem familiar with in our culture. Let's just run with some of the 10 Commandments.
Okay. Those are principles?
Well, we can call those. I mean, I understand. I wanted a very specific.
Thou shalt not. Let's go to the first one. Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah, I was going to say let's not use that one.
Blasphemy is not a principle.
I don't like that one, but no, that would be a rule. That would be a rule.
Oh, the 10 Commandments, I think, pretty much all are rules.
Yeah, I think I'll
yeah.
give it to you.
What do we got?
This is a good one, but I don't want to let myself off the hook for the principles thing. Killing is bad. Murder, stealing is bad. but it's different from thou shalt not steal.
Well, this is where all the moral quandaries come up with. Is it okay to steal a drug to save your...
Yeah.
But all of those moral quandaries are based on people trying to factor whether or not breaking the rule will create more goodness in the moral community than not breaking the rule. So it still goes back to my definition that it's a
So
set
you're
of
not
rules.
willing to abandon rule for
No.
principle.
Look, I'm not going to abandon the definition. Look, let me explain why I think the definition is better.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the hypotheticals that you're trying to set up a situation where the rule of the moral community is either ambiguous or breaking the rule would actually be more helpful for the moral community. An example like the kid crossing the street. All I think you're doing is using my definition that morality is a set of rules to bind individuals in a cooperative community, and you're contesting one of the rules. You're saying one of these rules that binds us into a moral community is not quite right. We should change this rule because this rule could be better to better facilitate.
Do you think most
the
people just like
community.
walk around with rules in their head for how to act?
Yes.
You do.
Of course. Look, there's all social etiquette is about rules. Don't walk around naked is a rule, right?
I would say that's a convention,
Okay.
and I would say that's a custom.
Okay. What's
I'm just so
can we get a definition of a rule? I'm curious.
yeah. I'm just so the reason that we don't want to go to the reason that you want to go to don't want to go to principle is because you think that rule is just a more precise term to use.
Rule is a more precise term.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Human actions are best judged according to principles, not rules.
Human actions are best judged according to principles. I mean,
Human moral actions.
no. Look, I'll switch places with you. That's fine.
Wow, we have had genuine difference of agreement on every single thing.
Right.
I think this is the only time I've ever had a radical difference of agreement with someone on everything.
Look, I don't.
I'm just not getting the rule thing. I'm not getting it.
Yeah,
I just don't get it.
I don't. Yeah. Look,
So I'm led to think that the confusion is linguistic.
let me. Yeah. Okay. Here, let me explain this. So the question is, or the claim is, human actions are best judged according to principles, not rules. Now, I would say, when we go into a court of law, we aren't asking, Kyle Rittenhouse if he violated this principle. We're asking Kyle Rittenhouse if he violated the law, the rule. And we are going to get a jury of our peers together to determine the facts of the situation, to determine whether or not he violated the specific rule. We aren't talking about principles.
I'm
When
reminded.
we do, and this,
Yeah.
I think, let me finish here. I think here's why I don't think principles is a better term, because I do think principles are important, but principles are how you begin to narrow down to actual rules. So if you say, look, we want to foster a principle of kindness in our moral community,
Yeah.
we have to immediately start thinking, well, what rules do we have to implement for people to make a community that's kind, right? Like a lot of religious communities will say, listen, the rule is, and it's more a social convention, that might be part of the disagreement. I would just say, if it's a social convention that people are forced to do through social pressure, how's it any different than a rule? But if, saying hello to your neighbors is kind of a social convention, but that is to foster the principle of kindness among the moral community.
Okay.
So you're talking about a more generalized thing, which I agree is important, but this is why I think this definition of morality is so good, because we start off with a general principle and then we think, well, what rules do we have to tangibly enforce to get down to this? So then social convention a lot of times becomes actual law, legislation. The social convention is, look, we shouldn't kill each other, right? That's like a social convention. But then as soon as the state comes in, they say, listen, let's just make it illegal to kill one another.
Maybe I have unearthed another source of our confusion.
Okay.
and correct me if I'm wrong if I don't have this right. So you began by talking about the law. To quote Billy Budd, I think that the quotation is, I do not serve justice, I serve the law.
Right.
If you want to talk about the law, that's very different from talking about morality. And if you want to talk about the system of contemporary jurisprudence and why we make judgments based upon predictability and regularity, that's fine, but that's not morality. That's a separate species. That's a different domain of inquiry. And I'm happy to have that inquiry. If that's what you want to do, I'll completely give you rules.
Hold on,
I'll give you exactly what you're looking for.
Let me counter.
Sure.
So would you accept that the law is a system of rules
100%.
designed to bind individuals into a cooperative community?
100%.
Okay, so you 100%. Look,
100%.
how do we turn that into a claim so we can both get on the strongly agree? The law? The law is a set of rules that binds individuals into a cooperative community, okay? So, look at this.
You broke the rule.
Okay, look at this. So now, Reid, what is the difference between the law and morality?
That's exactly what. Okay, there is a difference between
Look,
what
he's
is.
busily-
There is a difference between what is legal and what is moral.
There is a difference between
What is legal and what is moral. I'm on strongly agree.
Well, yes, there is.
Well, to what degree are you?
I strongly agree.
Okay,
as
well, we both.
The difference. The difference.
You can't. Yeah.
The difference is the enforcement mechanism. So in morality, like we have social convention, where the enforcement mechanism is really social pressure. In legality, we have actual someone can come around and arrest you. So like we have laws against public indecency. So if you want to walk around naked, you're going to get arrested, right? We have social convention around walking around, with your shirt off or your pants sagging down. So, people oftentimes press at social convention, like they try to violate social convention. But I would argue once a social convention is accepted enough and we want to bring in a legal enforcement mechanism, then we do.
Yeah. So maybe have we been talking about two different things this whole time? Or no?
I would ask you what is the difference between a set of rules that are social conventions and a set of rules that are laws?
Well, one is codified.
Okay.
One, and there's an enforcement mechanism and usually a punishment mechanism to go with it. And the other one is, you can just be a dick and not say please and thank you to anybody. That's your prerogative.
Right.
You'd be a dick.
Right. Would that person be a moral person?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you could also break social conventions like, every time you get on a train or an elevator, instead of letting people off, you could just run in.
Okay. So
But that's not I guess you could make the argument that it'd be a moral thing, but just barely.
So your claim is that you can make a mockery of social convention and still be a moral person.
I guess it. Oh, is that one can make a mockery of social convention? It depends on. I'm going to be neutral because it depends on the social convention. There are some conventions that would be, like if you made a mockery of the principle of not torturing small children for fun.
How about you can make a mockery of all social conventions and be a moral person?
You can make a mockery. How about you change the word all to every? You can make a mockery of every social convention and still be a moral person. I'm going to remain neutral on that because it depends on the country in which you live, the society in which you live, and what the social conventions are.
Right. Look,
because you could live in like the Dobu, a fucked up society, and
how about this?
Yeah.
You can make a mockery of all the social conventions of your community and be a moral person.
It depends on the moral community. It depends on the community.
Okay. What community? Can you give an example of a community that you can make the mockery of all the social conventions?
The Dobu.
What is it to what is it to be a moral person to you? What does that mean?
It's tricky. This is when having a religious frame would be a useful explanatory.
Just for the record, I'm an atheist.
I'm an
so
atheist too. It'd be a cogent explanatory mechanism if you have a religious thing, because you could just point to things. I don't have that.
Right.
That's why I originally gave the definition that was pretty broad about doing what one should do.
But do you think there are moral people and there are immoral people?
I do. I certainly do.
Okay, so what separates moral? What makes someone a moral person and someone an immoral person?
A few things. I think pursuing cruelty makes one immoral. I think but trying to push as many people as possible, or even some people, into the bad life, to increase rather than decrease human suffering.
Okay.
All of these things.
So is a person should strive to decrease human suffering? Is that a rule? So my claim is one should
Strive to decrease human suffering.
is a rule. That's my claim.
Oh, is a rule as
Yes.
opposed to... So why did you add is a rule to the end of that?
Because we're trying to get to my definition. Like my understanding of the situation here is that you're following a bunch of rules in your life, but you don't want to define them as rules for some reason.
Okay, let's do this claim.
Do you have dietary restrictions or anything? Anything that you won't eat?
Yeah, I don't eat sugar, but let's do this claim.
So that's a rule?
No, because I
It's
had
more a
I had
guideline.
a glass of wine last night. To live a good life, one must follow some rules. To live a good life, one must follow some rules.
Reid, you're so good
Hold on,
at
I got to think about this. To live a good life, one must follow some rules.
I mean, it seems like following no rules is a recipe for a bad life.
That's another claim. Following no rules is a recipe for a bad life. Okay, hold on. I got to think about that. Following no rules, I strongly agree to that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, we're zeroing in here.
All right. Okay, it's possible to live a good life without following any rules.
It's possible.
It's possible to live a
strongly
good
disagree.
life without following any rules.
Strongly disagree. Look at this. All these other ones aren't even getting used.
Yeah. Why do you strongly disagree?
Well, I mean,
It'd be hard to live a life without following any
yeah.
rules.
I just like what
But you could have.
what that life looks like.
So look. Here's an example. This is an example in the practical domain that's not in the moral domain.
Mm-hmm.
Although you could argue that it's somewhat.
What?
Let me just give you the example.
go
Let me give you the example. So I don't have rules. I have a couple of principles in my diet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't eat sugars, but I had a half a cookie last night with Reid and Travis. Travis did not. Travis is more of a dietary rule follower. I have the other rule. I don't eat bread, but I had fried chicken, a piece of fried chicken that was breaded. So it's not a rule, it's a principle. It's a vague principle that I can break sometimes, or that I can have a less strict adherence. And I think Travis is more of a rule follower in that sense. Now, you can make the argument that there's something moral about following those rules or principle, but it is possible to live a good life without following any rules. I think you can live a good life by following kind of broad principles like don't be a dick, use basic courtesy to people, thank you, please, work hard, but that doesn't mean work always. Like some basic principles, if you adhered to those, you'd be good. But I don't really think you need. I've actually talking myself out of it the more I hear myself think.
We're just arguing over the definition of a rule. Well, I would say in your situation where you're calling your dietary restrictions principles, I would say you could just as easily call them rules, because just because you break a rule doesn't mean that the rule doesn't exist.
True. Yeah. So then again, maybe we have to just go back. Maybe this whole confusion for the last hour has revolved around what the definition of a rule is.
Right. Yeah. But I think the definition of a rule fits your definition of morality. What one should do. That's a rule.
That's a definition.
Look, your what one should do is not eat sugar. That's
now
your rule.
That's you could say that's a rule or a principle,
Right.
but not a definition.
Right.
So Reid, what's the definition of a rule? Interesting. A rule is a principle, guideline, or regulation that
That's
establishes...
social convention or laws.
A rule is a principle, guideline, or regulation that establishes a standard or norm for behavior, action, or decision making. It is a directive that specifies what is allowed or required in a particular situation and is often enforced by an authority or agreed upon by a group. Rules can be formal or informal, and they are designed to maintain order and ensure fairness or promote safety. So I guess the question is, what's the difference between a rule and a principle?
Well, look, a principle can be a rule according to that, but it perfectly articulates.
Yeah, they're almost synonym. No. Ask what's the difference between a principle and a rule?
So that definition spans social convention and laws. It said principle, which I would say is a social convention, to regulation, which I would say is a law.
What is it? What's the difference? Here, you read that, please.
A principle is a fundamental truth or guiding principle that serves as the foundation for a system of belief, behavior, or a chain of reasoning. It's a high-level foundational concept that helps decision-making and actions. So this is exactly what I was saying. A principle is more broad.
Yeah, it's a higher level than a rule, which is a specific pronouncement,
right,
or like a prohibition or a prescription. But a principle is like one order or a... So do you agree to that? Because if you agree to that, I think we can wash away the confusion.
I completely agree with that. I said before that the reason why I don't want to change the definition to a principle is because a principle is what is the higher level. And in order to build a moral system, you have to go deeper into the actual prohibitions. You can't have a moral community run on the principle of kindness.
But you just added the word system, because our first claim is what was morality. Mm-hmm. You just added system.
Yeah. Well, the set of rules.
For a system, I would agree. You would have to add rules.
Right. Well, look,
but if you're just talking about what morality is, you don't need to do that.
If you want to go back to the definition, morality is a set of rules that binds individuals into a cooperative community. I would call that set of rules, the development of the set of rules, the culture that enforces the set of rules, all part of a moral system.
Okay, let's do this one. Rules, and then we'll get you in there. Rules are more concrete and specific than principles.
Strongly agree.
So we agree then.
Yes, of course. One can be...
We agree. One can be immoral while living alone on an island.
Yes, disagree. Oh, we're doing this again?
Sepper, you were watching us play the game, and you wanted to play. I believe that you strongly disagree to the claim one can be immoral while living alone on an island, because you believe that morality is intrinsically communal. Is that correct? There's an intrinsically communal aspect to morality.
Yes, yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes. Morality is about right and wrong behavior as it relates to others in the moral community.
Okay.
If you're by yourself, if you're living alone on an island, you're not even in a moral community.
Okay. What do you think of that?
I think it's
up to your mouth.
I think it's interesting, but not necessarily something I agree with, because some could say that, there's many ways you can, like, I would go against that, but some of it is like morality is like doing the right thing regardless of the outcome.
Okay.
So the outcome is like if people see it or not see it, or if you're in a community or not in a community, it's like that doesn't have anything to do with the action itself.
Okay.
Here's the only thing that I would.
Well, you got to guess mine first.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I would amend this if you, depending upon the context of the situation, if you're living alone on an island, but you're a castaway and your family is somewhere waiting for you to be discovered, I think killing yourself probably would be immoral, but that's how it relates to your moral community that's elsewhere. So but you fundamentally think.
Okay, hold on, because you just said something. Now we have to talk about that.
Okay.
So you mean to tell me that if you had no relatives, if everybody you knew were deceased and you had no friends and you're living alone on an island, if you killed yourself, would it be immoral?
No.
So killing yourself is only immoral in the context of other people, friends, lovers, relatives, what have you.
All morality is, we're going back to my definition. All morality is about rules pertaining to a moral community that you are embedded in.
Okay, so you want to guess my best reason?
You fundamentally disagree that morality is about communities as it is.
True, but that's not my reason.
Okay. You're saying if you're living alone on a desert island, you can be immoral. Strongly agree.
One can be immoral while living alone
in the entire universe.
Yep, my reasoning still applies.
Okay.
Does that include animals and all the living things, or does that include just alone as like only human? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
this guy's smart. He's like, look, I'm going to build a moral community with some animals.
Okay, so what do you think my reason for believing that is? You guessed incorrectly once. I guessed yours correctly, so you don't have to hold it anymore.
Because you think morality and rules don't intersect in any way, shape, or form.
True, but that's not my reason for being on the line.
I give up. What's your reason?
One goes to his point. So one can torture animals for fun. So if we just eliminate this, so I believe that if you were torturing animals for fun, you would be immoral. And the other one is, I believe, as Kant said, that one can be unjust towards oneself.
I think those two, if I had to pick, I would pick those two as reasons as well, because we are in this world. I've heard both of you guys are like agnostic, right?
Atheists.
Atheists. Okay, so I believe that we are here. How we got here, we can argue.
That's another conversation.
Right. We are here, and we have a duty to take care of oneself. Right. We have some sort of responsibility to take care of ourselves, and that's enough for you to be immoral. Like, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you are not taking care of your necessities and some like your needs, then you're not satisfying your kind of, what was the word? What was the last
unjust?
question? You're being unjust.
So why didn't Adam's reason persuade you?
Because we can say we have two lives and two responsibilities, one to ourselves and one to the community that we live in.
But in his case, the example, his argument is, if there's no community, you can't act immorally. You can only act immorally in the context, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, in the context of other beings. Is that right?
Well, you can act immorally too. Like this one, I would come over there because it is, if you, like, suicide is a prohibition in most societies because you're considered valuable to the community. So you can you can do things to yourself that is bad for the community.
So if there were no community, it wouldn't be wrong to kill yourself.
No. Well, I think you would disagree, but you would disagree because you'd say there's a wider community. Are you religious?
I'm a philosophy major. I study religions.
Okay,
well. So,
okay.
yeah,
But do you believe in God? Do you think
I do believe in God.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yeah.
he would say that the community still exists even though he's here by himself.
Yeah. So he, in
So can
Yeah,
I
go
add
ahead.
something? So I believe that we have a responsibility to our community. Like what you're saying, I believe and I
Okay.
agree with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also believe that there's more to it. Like you also have a responsibility to yourself as well.
Right, but is that responsibility to yourself because you need to be a healthy, contributing member of the community?
Like I would say, I wouldn't want to like put exact like split, but yes, half of it, yes.
Okay.
But it's also there's more to it.
Right.
It's like you must be like you're part of a society and a community,
Mm-hmm.
but also you are in charge of your body and your soul and everything that goes with you. So you're responsible for that being as well.
So let's say the community all dies off.
Mm-hmm.
You're the sole survivor of your community. Is it okay to join them?
No, because you're still responsible for this being and for the person that you are.
Okay, I have a question for you. If there were no God, would you think it's possible to commit an injustice toward yourself?
If there's no God, okay. I think we are given a power. We're given the freedom of being here. Maybe it was given by God. Maybe it wasn't given by God. People believe different things. But we can argue that who gave it to us versus how can we take care of it? How can we treat it?
So if this universe has no, you're living in a universe without a God, there's no God, is it unjust for a person, can a person be unjust toward themselves?
Of course it can be.
Okay. So that's my question to you.
Is it possible
Is
to
it
commit
possible
an injustice
to commit an
against
injustice
oneself?
against oneself?
Yes, I strongly agree it is.
Is it possible to commit an injustice against oneself if you're the only person in the universe?
Then I strongly disagree. Yes.
Yeah, I would strongly agree on all. So you want me to? Yeah.
So it would be interesting to dive in on the actual definition, though, that I'm using for morality. Do you have a definition of morality that you use? What is morality?
Morality is.
Do you want to hear my definition?
I
first?
think morality is there are some definitions that for me that are still evolving.
Okay.
So when I believe in certain like some definition, it's not like put in stone for me, right?
Okay, no,
it's
look.
always evolving. And for me right now in this time of my life, morality is doing the right thing regardless of the outcome and regardless of who's watching and who's not watching.
Okay.
So his is very
how-
similar to mine. It's very broad that way.
But who's going to define what's right? Though that's
That's
we
another
have to-
question. That's another question.
Yeah.
But his definition is very similar to mine. Mine was what one ought to do, what one should do.
Yeah.
We don't have the.
So
Yeah.
these behaviors, would you have a problem defining them as rules?
I could define them as rules, but rules is a very tricky word here because rules are not meant to be broken.
Right. So, but do you have certain things that you would define as rules and other things you might define as guidelines?
No, I wouldn't say guidelines. That's like a suggestion, guidelines.
Right. Okay.
But I would say there are rules, but you can't find a citizen that has never broken any rules.
What is?
But you can't find a complete moral person that has done everything morally in their life.
You said morality is about how to behave.
Morality is about, I would say how to behave could be more broader, could be a way of being. Like you could
Okay.
definitely, because you can behave a certain way, but your thoughts are poison.
I like that. It is, for me, it is much more that than a rule. It's much more a way of being in the world. I'd have to add it in the world. It's much more a way of being.
Well, my definition was designed so you could study morality. Like that's the whole point.
So
of it.
you can what?
So that you can study morality. Yes.
Well, you can study the way people are in the world too.
Right.
So what prevents you
look,
from studying morality if it's just a way of being?
Well, if you
good
can
question.
define a certain rule set, if you can say, look, I can look at this community and this community has X, Y, Z rules. These rules are prohibitions. These rules are social conventions. You can start studying how different communities that adopt different rule sets prosper or die out.
I think that would be a great and simple way of doing it. It's not complicated at all, but I don't know how, like, we're talking about the rules that exist and the rules that people behave accordingly to, right?
Right.
It's a lot easier to go ahead and read someone's book that all the rules exist in them and be like, okay, so this rule is good, this rule is not good, and we'll see how long will they stay there, like the country will exist.
Right.
But when we go ahead and go dive deeper in the community, in the society, and we'll see people's what are they most attracted to when they're making a decision. Like, what are the decisions that are making in a certain area? Because I can tell you, because I immigrated to this country like a few years back, and the place I come from is super diverse in a lot smaller amount of geographic like space.
Where is it?
Iran. So there's a lot of cultural differences that you can just see when you just take it like 3-hour drive compared to here.
So how?
And it's their decisions basically mostly that determines this differences, not the rules that exist in the society.
Do you see a difference though between the rules, the social dynamic in Iran and the social rules in here in America? Like, there's a social convention when you meet people, you shake hands.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a rule; it's a social convention.
Right.
But are there different social conventions in Iran?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like, for example, I'm just gonna go on because you use shaking hands. Like, we have a tradition that once you meet a man, you go and you give him a hug and 3 kisses, like right, left, right.
Okay.
And a woman, there's no like you don't really shake their hand or give him a hug.
Now that social convention here might be perceived completely differently.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Sexist,
Sure.
perhaps. Yeah.
Or that it's a lot more complicated than I would say sexist, because it's that
No, could be.
Yeah,
It's like you wouldn't shake a woman's hand.
So, but
it could
I'm just
yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm only making the point because can we classify that as a rule? Like, I guess the problem that you guys have with rule is because in your mind, rule means can never be broken. In my mind, rule means
It's just
I think it's
broken,
just the
but it's-
definition of the word rule that is not supposed to be broken.
what's that?
A rule is not supposed to be. It's
See,
it's
I-
there to not be broken. Like, as I don't know the right like exact definition of a rule, but I would assume
I would say
that would
rules
be it.
can be broken. I would
course,
say
yeah.
laws can be broken.
I mean,
The
everything.
question is, what is the penalty for breaking it? You can foul someone on a court, right?
Yeah,
You
I
get a
just don't.
penalty.
I just don't think you
It doesn't
need.
change the fact that the foul is a rule.
Yeah, I
right?
just don't think you need. You can do everything you want to do, and not import something. A
Well, you can't
word that has
study
so
morality.
much baggage in it.
You can't study morality.
It's harder, I would say, to study morality.
But
There's
you
not a
understand what I'm
specific
getting at.
criteria that you can study it. That's why it makes it so
Yeah.
ambiguous to study it. But it's still possible to study morality.
So some countries are run with an authoritarian system.
Mm-hmm.
They have a ruler who basically makes all the rules
Mm-hmm.
and is in power for as long as he can stay in power. Some nations are run with a democratic system
Mm-hmm.
where the people vote on who is in power and how long they stay in power.
Right.
These are very, very, very different rule sets.
We
right?
got to wrap this one up.
But
yeah,
we
yeah.
can look at those two different rule sets and judge, are authoritarian type political systems more effective in the world or are less effective? I would argue that a lot of the world is figuring that out right now as they're judging liberal democracies to more authoritarian regimes.
All right.
To be moral,
gotta
just
wrap-
to
we
wrap
got-
it
all
up,
right,
but
last-
to be
we'll give it last
moral in
word.
specific situations, it's a lot harder because situations are completely different.
Yes.
When you put a rule in a society, when you have like the way if one person makes all the rules versus democratic system, that is the situation people adjust to. But morality it's the opposite. It's
Right.
that based on where you are is how you're going to make decisions. That's why I think it's completely different.
Right. So
Yeah.
you
we
would
got to
say-
wrap up. We got to
Okay,
wrap
well,
up.
we can quit.
Yeah, but so do I move to next?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Is-
We're gonna
Oh,
read
good to
back
go?
his phone. Yeah,
Oh,
good
awesome.
to go.
Amazing.
Good to go.
Sounds good.
Sepper. Oh.
That was intense. That was a.
Talking about morality is fun, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a philosopher major, so I definitely.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. This falls under the umbrella of my nonprofit, National Progress Alliance. Your generous donations keep us going and help fuel content like this. We truly appreciate your support. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.